This is the only A&P oral test bank online that includes ASA, Jeppesen, and other source questions compiled with all of their associated ACS codes. This video is brought to you by oraviation.com. Click the link below to sign up for our mailing list to be notified whenever new test questions are released to make sure you're studying the most current information. What is the difference between the conventional current flow theory and electron flow? Conventional current flow theory is a visualization of current as flowing from positive to negative. In actual practice, electrons in a circuit flow from negative to a positive for electron theory. How can you find the polarity of an electromagnet? Hold the electromagnet in your left hand with your fingers encircling the coil in the direction electrons flow, from negative to positive. Your thumb will point toward the north pole of the electromagnet. Describe magnetism. The property of an object to attract certain metallic substances. What is the difference between a permanent and a temporary magnet? Permanent magnets retain their magnetism. Temporary magnets rapidly lose magnetism. What component creates capacitance in AC circuits? A capacitor. What constitutes a capacitor? Two conductors separated by an insulator. What is the purpose of a capacitor? It stores electrical energy in electrostatic fields. How does a capacitor store electricity? The energy is stored in the form of an electrostatic charge or field that exists between two conductors separated by an insulator. What is the basic unit of capacitance? The farad. Why should electrolytic capacitors not be used in an AC circuit? They are polarized. An electrolytic capacitor will pass current of one polarity but will block current of the opposite polarity. What is meant by inductance? The ability to store electrical energy in electromagnetic fields. What is the basic unit of inductance? The Henry. Given the inductance and the frequency of the AC in a circuit, how do you compute the inductive reactance caused by the coil? XL equals 2 pi FL, where XL equals the inductive reactance in ohms, F equals the frequency in cycles per second, pi equals 3.1416, and L equals inductance. Does a capacitor in an AC circuit cause the current to lead or lag the voltage? It causes the current to lead the voltage. Does an inductor in an AC circuit cause the current to lead or lag the voltage? It causes the current to lag behind the voltage. What is the principal advantage of AC current over DC current? Power can be transmitted over long distances more efficiently and with smaller wires because the voltage can be easily increased or decreased by a transformer. What is the basic unit of power in a DC circuit? The watt. What happens to the current in a DC circuit if the voltage is increased but the resistance remains the same? it increases. DC circuits can take one of three forms or types. What are they? Series, parallel, and complex, or series parallel. What are 5 sources of electrical energy? Magnetism, chemical energy, light, heat, and pressure. Which law of electricity is the most important for an aircraft mechanic to know? Ohm's law. What are the elements of Ohm's law? Voltage, E, current, I, and resistance, R. What is the name of the law that describes the relationship in an electrical circuit of voltage, current, and resistance? Ohm's law. What law describes the most fundamental or basic relationships in an electrical circuit? Ohm's law. What is the basic equation of Ohm's law? E equals I times R. What is Kirchhoff's voltage law? Kirchhoff's voltage law states that the algebraic sum of all voltages around a closed path or loop is 0. Another way of saying this is that the sum of all the voltage drops equals the total source voltage. What is a formula for determining power? General power formula is P equals I times E, where P equals power, I equals current, and E equals volts. What is Faraday's law? Faraday's law, or the law of electromagnetic induction, states that the induced EMF, or electromagnetic force, in a closed loop of wire is proportional to the rate of change of the magnetic flux through a coil of wire. What is Lenz's law? What is Lenz's law? Lenz's law states that the EMF induced in an electric circuit always acts in such a direction that the current it drives around a closed circuit produces a magnetic field, which opposes the change in magnetic flux. What is the right-hand motor rule? When the index finger of the right hand is pointed in the direction of the magnetic field and the second finger in the direction of current flow, the thumb indicates the direction the current carrying wire moves. In DC circuits, what unit measures power? Watts. What is a kilowatt? 1,000 watts. 1 kilowatt is equal to how many watts? 1,000 watts. What is a megawatt? 1,000,000 watts. What instrument is used to measure current flow? An ammeter. What instrument is used to measure electrical resistance? An ohm meter. What instrument is used to measure continuity in an electrical circuit? An ohm meter. What is a megaohm? 1,000,000 ohms. When measuring resistance of a component with an ohm meter, should the circuit be energized? No, there should be no power on the circuit. In what units is battery capacity expressed? In amp hours. What instrument is used to measure the specific gravity of the electrolyte in a lead-acid battery? A hydrometer. What electrical values are measured by a typical multimeter? Voltage, current, and resistance. Define a short circuit. Low resistance path between two poles, a component and/or a conductor and ground. What is voltage? Electrical pressure. What is the basic unit of voltage? The volt. What instrument is used to measure voltage? A voltmeter. To measure voltage, is a voltmeter placed in series or in parallel with the source of voltage? In parallel. What is the voltage across each resistor connected in parallel across a 12-volt battery? Volts. What is the open circuit voltage of a lead-acid cell? 2.1 volts. How is output voltage regulated in an AC alternator? Voltage regulation is accomplished by varying the strength of the AC exciter fields. What is electrical current? The flow of electrons in a circuit. What is the basic unit of current flow? The amp. What part of an amp is a milliamp? 1,000th of an amp. What two things happen when current flows through a conductor? Heat is generated and a magnetic field surrounds the conductor. To measure current through a component, is an ammeter placed in parallel or in series with the component? In series. What formula is used to find current when voltage and resistance are known? Current equals voltage divided by resistance. If the resistance in a DC circuit remains the same, but the voltage doubles, what happens to the amount of current flowing in the circuit? It also doubles. What is meant by resistance in an electrical circuit? The opposition to the flow of electrons. What is the basic unit of electrical resistance? The ohm. What four things affect the resistance of an electrical conductor? The material, the cross-sectional area, the length, and the temperature. How can you tell the resistance of a composition resistor? by a series of colored bands around one end of the resistor. What formula is used to find resistance when voltage and current are known? Resistance equals voltage divided by current. What are the three causes of opposition to current flow in an AC circuit? Resistance, inductive reactance, and capacitive reactance. What is impedance? The total opposition to the flow of an alternating current. It is the vector sum of resistance, capacitive reactance, and inductive reactance. In what unit is impedance measured? In ohms. How is resistance calculated in a series circuit? For resistors in a series configuration, the total resistance of the circuit is equal to the sum of the individual resistors. How is resistance calculated in a parallel circuit? The formula for the total parallel resistance can be seen in the YouTube video. What is the total resistance of three 12-ohm resistors connected in series? 36 ohms. What is the total resistance of three 12-ohm resistors connected in parallel? 4 ohms. What is the formula for power in a DC circuit? Power equals voltage times current. What is the relationship between mechanical and electrical power? 1 horsepower equals 746 watts. What is meant by true power in an AC circuit? The product of the circuit voltage and the current that is in phase with this voltage. In what units is true power expressed? In watts. What is meant by apparent power in an AC circuit? The product of the circuit voltage and the circuit current without reference to the phase angle. In what units is apparent power expressed? In volt amps. What is meant by reactive power in an AC circuit? The power consumed in the inductive and capacitive reactance in an AC circuit. Reactive power is also called wattless power. In what unit is reactive power expressed? In volt amps reactive, VAR, or kilovolt amps reactive, kVAR. What is meant by power factor in an AC circuit? The ratio of true power to apparent power. It is also the ratio of circuit resistance to circuit impedance. How many watts of power are consumed by a 1/5 horsepower 24-volt DC motor that is 75% efficient? 199 watts. How much current flows through each of 3 resistors connected in series if the total current is 3 amps? 3 amps. How much current flows through each of 3 equal resistors connected in parallel if the total current is 3 amps? One amp. What is meant by the capacity rating of a lead-acid battery? The number of hours a battery can supply a given current flow. What electrolyte is used in a lead-acid battery? A mixture of sulfuric acid and water. Does the specific gravity of the electrolyte in a lead-acid battery increase or decrease as the battery becomes discharged? It decreases. What is the specific gravity of a fully charged lead-acid battery? Between 1.275 and 1.3. How many cells are there in a 24-volt lead-acid battery? 12. What is the range of temperatures of the electrolyte in a lead-acid battery that does not require a correction when measuring its specific gravity? Between 70 degrees Fahrenheit and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. How do you treat a lead-acid battery compartment to protect it from corrosion? Paint it with an acyclic tar-based paint or with polyurethane enamel. What is used to neutralize spilled electrolyte from a lead-acid battery? A solution of bicarbonate of soda and water. What is the reason for having a separate facility for storing and servicing nickel cadmium and lead-acid batteries? The electrolyte in the two types of batteries is chemically opposite, and the fumes from one type can contaminate the electrolyte of the other type. How high should the electrolyte level be in a properly serviced lead-acid battery? Only up to the level of the indicator in the cell. Why is the closed circuit voltage of a lead-acid battery lower than its open circuit voltage? The voltage is dropped across the internal resistance of the battery. What gases are released when a lead-acid battery is being charged? Hydrogen and oxygen. What is the electrolyte used in a nickel-cadmium battery? Potassium hydroxide and water. Why is a hydrometer not used to measure the state of charge of a nickel-cadmium battery? The electrolyte of a nickel-cadmium battery does not enter into the chemical changes that occur when the battery is charged or discharged. Its specific gravity does not change appreciably. The state of charge of a nickel-cadmium battery cannot be determined by measuring the specific gravity of the electrolyte. For what reason? There is no significant change in the specific gravity of the electrolyte as the battery is charged or discharged. Is the electrolyte level of a nickel-cadmium battery lowest when the battery is fully charged or fully discharged? Fully discharged. What is the result of a cell imbalance in a nickel-cadmium battery? The low internal resistance allows current to flow between the unbalanced cells and generate heat. What are two reasons that might cause a nickel-cadmium battery to fail to deliver its rated capacity? Faulty cells or cell imbalance. What is a thermal runaway? The large current flow allowed by the low internal resistance causes the cells to produce more heat than they can dissipate. The heat further lowers the internal resistance, so more current can flow. This continues until the battery destroys itself. How may thermal runaway be prevented? By carefully monitoring the temperature of the cells and controlling the charging current to prevent an excess of current flowing into the battery. How is it possible to know when a nickel-cadmium battery is fully charged? Completely discharge the battery and give it a constant current charge to 140% of its amp-hour capacity. What is used to neutralize spilled electrolyte from a nickel-cadmium battery? A solution of boric acid and water. What is a transformer and how does it work? A transformer is a device that changes electrical energy in an alternating current circuit of a given voltage into electrical energy at a different voltage level. It consists of two coils that are not electrically connected but arranged so that the magnetic field surrounding one coil cuts through the other coil. What three elements are required to form an electrical circuit? A source of electrical energy, a load or resistance to use the electricity, and wires or conductors to connect the source to the load. What is meant by continuity in an electrical circuit? The circuit is continuous or complete when electrons can flow from one terminal of the power source to the other. What is the basic function of a switch? Switches control the current flow in most aircraft electrical currents. What is a relay? A relay is simply an electrical mechanical switch where a small amount of current can control a large amount of current. What is the function of a current limiter? A current limiter is a type of heavy-duty fuse, commonly with ratings of 30 amps or greater. They are often used to protect a section of an electrical system, such as a single electrical bus. What materials are fixed resistors made of? The most common fixed resistors are made of carbon composition. Other types of fixed resistors include carbon film, metal oxide, metal film, and metal glaze. Wire-wound resistors are typically used to control large amounts of current and have high power ratings. What are the two main types of variable resistors? The two main types of variable resistors are the rheostat and the potentiometer. What happens to the current in a conductor if the length of the conductor is doubled with all other parameters unchanged? The resistance of the conductor would double and current flow would be decreased. Explain the basic concept of digital logic, including RAM, ROM, NVRAM, logic gates, inverters, rectifiers, and flip-flops. Transistors are used in digital electronics to construct circuits that act as digital logic gates. They manipulate electrical signals through the logic gates. Millions of tiny transistors can be placed on a chip to create the digital logic landscape through which a component's signals are processed. RAM, or random access memory, that is used for temporary storage in a computer system. ROM, read-only memory, is a type of non-volatile memory in a computer that is not lost when power to the computer is lost. NVRAM is non-volatile random access memory, is random access memory that is retained even when power is lost. Logic gates. Logic gates provide a set output signal based on one or more input signals. The input signal is either voltage, referred to as true, logic 1 or yes, or no voltage, referred to as false, logic 0 or no. The basic logic gates are AND, OR, and NOT. A rectifier converts AC voltage to DC voltage. A flip-flop is an electrical circuit that can store a single binary signal, either 1 or 0. The binary state can be changed based on the input signal. What are binary numbers? The binary number system has only two digits, 0 and 1. It's also known as a base 2 numbering system. What is a common cause of damage to solid-state components and/or integrated circuits? Electrostatic discharge, or ESD, from the human body during handling. What is electrostatic discharge? Electrostatic discharge, or ESD, is the discharge of static electricity that can build up on a component or a person's body. ESD is a frequent cause of damage to solid-state components and integrated circuits, and can be prevented by wearing a grounding wrist strap when handling electrical components. What type of drawing depicts electrical components with respect to each other within a circuit? An electrical schematic. What are three types of DC circuits with regards to the placement of the various circuit components? Series, parallel, and series parallel. What are the two general types of AC motors used in aircraft systems? Induction motors and synchronous motors. What is the formula used to determine the speed of an AC motor? RPM equals 120 times the frequency divided by the number of poles. In what types of applications is a series wound DC motor most often used? Applications that require high torque and low speed, such as a starter motor. What are the two principal parts of a DC motor? The field assembly and an armature assembly. If you have questions about any of the topics covered, click the link in the description for our course where we explain every concept in quick, easy to understand videos at ortaviation.com. Go to our channel for the next subject in the general oral test guide.